Hey, what's up guys? Going to walk you through the process on how to make some face frames, specifically stained grade face frames. You see there on the left, I've got some started. Alright, so whenever it comes to milling the face frame parts to the right size, I've got kind of a work triangle circle area here set up that I use. First thing I'm going to do is cut my rough lengths a little bit longer than what I need on the miter saw. From there, they move over to the table saw where I rip them 3/8 wider than what I want my finished width to be. The reason for that is whenever you rip a board, it releases the grain tension. So a lot of times as you rip it, it'll bow even though it was straight before. So I want to release as much of that grain tension as possible so that I get the true picture of what the board is going to look like as it's milled. If you left it say like if this was a 1x6 and you ripped a long board, a lot of times you end up with a really bad bow in it, which would not be ideal for face frames. So these are 3/8 over what my desired finished width is. From there, we move over to the joiner, put a straight and square edge on it, and then back to the table saw where I'll rip these at 1/16 wider than what my finished width will be, and then I'll run them through the planer and take the final 1/16 off. The reason I run them through the planer is it squares it up nice and it removes the saw marks. This is the joiner I use. This is an 8-inch Powermatic, and it has the helical cutter head on here, which is so important to getting a really good finish. If you run your pieces through at a moderate speed rate, it'll spit it out with a glass finish on it that only requires light sanding. So then as we move from the joiner, we'll move over to the table saw. There's really nothing special about this aspect of it. I run a 40-tooth Tenru gold metal blade in this. There's better blades. The reason I like that blade is because it can be used on plywood and hardwood for ripping, and it's also a blade that works well with my portable table saws. So I like to standardize things and just use the same blade for everything. So that's the blade I run in the table saw. It does leave saw marks though, which leads to the next step in the equation, and that is the planer. This is a 5 horsepower Powermatic planer. It's also got the helical cutter head on it, and I find that if I leave my face frame stock 1/16 oversized, when I run that through on edge, it'll also give me a nice glass finish with very little shatter. Again, for this machine, that helical cutter head is really important also. Okay, so that's the basic overview. I've got these pieces I need to mill for face frame stock 2 1/4 wide. So I've already got them ripped at 2 5/8. So I'm going to take these, bounce over to the joiner, back to the table saw, and then over to the planer. So as I run these through, I'm going to sight down the side, and I'm going to run it so that the crown is up, and then I'm going to look for the bow, if there's a bow at all on the board, and make sure that that bow is riding against the fence. That way there's solid contact to keep the edge square to the fence the whole way through. I don't have these cut to final length, I'll move them back over to the chop saw and cut those. My chop saw station isn't anything elaborate. It's just got a Craig track mounted on the back side, and that's what I use for my stops to keep my lengths consistent whenever I've got multiple cuts. Alright, so at this point I've got all my pieces milled and cut to length, and I've got the pocket hole screws in all the pieces that need those. So I stage all my pieces back here, and then this is my assembly table, and I keep the various tools that I need over here on this cart on the side of the assembly table. Assembly tools are pretty straightforward. I've got my Craig screws loaded in all the holes. This is hardwood, so I've got the fine thread screws. This is red oak. I use a DeWalt drill set with the clutch on 15 with a Craig drill bit, Craig Automax clamp, and Titebond 1 glue. Okay, so now this is the base of my locker unit. It's all assembled. The next step, to finish it off, I'm going to sand it, and then one really important little trick that I really like is to use a 1/16 round over bit with a pilot bearing on it to go around on both sides and break that inside edge. Makes it finish up a lot nicer. Here's a close-up of this router bit with the 1/16 inch round over and pilot point on there. What that allows me to do is get into the corners. What I have right now is extremely crisp, sharp edges on all of this. And what'll happen is after we get our on-site finish put on there, as that gets abused and rubbed on, that sharp corner will rub off. And that's the main reason I really like to use this pilot point bit, just to break that edge, and it just makes it finish off a lot nicer, and it'll make it a lot more durable for the long haul. Alright, so that's all sanded up. Now I'm going to go around the edges with that round over bit. One other tip, use a hard pad on your Festool sanders. That's one of my favorite things about the Festool sanders is that you can swap out the pads. A hard pad keeps everything super flat and super crisp. One of the important things if you're using this bit with the pilot point, that thing is spinning. So you want to make sure as you come through your corners, always keep that thing moving, otherwise you'll get some burning in there. So here is our edges with that round over. Now what I like to do is just hit it real quickly with some hand sandpaper, and then this will all be done. So I hope this has helped you guys out. This is a stained grade red oak face frame unit for a entry locker. Everything came out as close to perfect as I can get it. Again, it's so crucial to have good equipment. I mean, you're only as good as your tools are, unfortunately. In some cases, it's really important to get rid of those saw marks and still be able to have a nice, square, crisp face frame. All the joints came together really well. Having the Craig machine set at just the right depth always makes sure that everything gets pulled together really well. But that's that's about it. I'll have links to the tools that I use in the notes below, and be sure to comment if you've got any questions or comments or anything that you do different. So thanks for watching.